I spent 17 years building a life with my wife, working every hour I could to keep our family afloat. Then, one afternoon, I saw something in a Walmart parking lot that made my blood run cold. She was with another man, and the way he touched her told me everything. I didn't confront her. I watched, I waited, and I planned. When I finally left, I made sure she'd never find me. But 7 months later, she did, and what she brought with her changed the game completely. My name is Cesar Ramirez. I'm 38 years old, and I've spent the better part of my adult life with calloused hands and the smell of hot metal in my clothes. I work at Phoenix Steelworks in Mesa, Arizona, the kind of place where the sun beats down like a hammer and your sweat evaporates before it hits the ground. Been welding there for 12 years, specializing in industrial pipeline work. Built my reputation from nothing with skill and determination that nobody could question. Carmen and I got married young, both of us barely 21. Some folks said we were crazy, too young to know what we were doing. Maybe they were right, but back then it felt like the only thing that made sense. She was beautiful, sharp as a razor, and had this way of making you feel like you were the center of the universe. We had Orlando a year later, then Lucia came along 16 months after that. 2 kids before we hit 23. Life came at us fast, but we handled it. Or so I thought. The steelworks kept me busy, real busy. Weekdays I'd be there from 6 in the morning until 5 at night. Sometimes later, if a project ran long. Saturdays too, especially during summer when the heat had everyone's equipment breaking down and pipes expanding beyond tolerance. Carmen worked as a coordinator at Mesa Medical Billing. Decent pay, good benefits. Between the two of us, we made it work. Paid the mortgage, kept food on the table, started college funds for both kids. Orlando's 18 now, studying engineering at ASU. Lucia's a junior in high school, wants to be a veterinarian. I'm proud of them. Worked myself to the bone to make sure they'd have opportunities I never had. Took out loans, worked extra shifts, said yes to every overtime hour that came my way. That's what a father does. You sacrifice, you provide, you make sure your kids don't have to struggle the way you did. But somewhere along the way, while I was busy being a provider, I stopped being a husband, or maybe Carmen stopped being a wife. Hard to say which came first. All I know is that by the time I figured out what was happening, the damage was already done. The foundation had rotted out from under us, and I was the last one to smell the decay. It all started on a Tuesday afternoon in March. I remember because it was the day after Orlando's birthday, and we just sent him money for textbooks and living expenses. I'd left work early to pick up supplies at the Walmart on Southern Avenue, needed some PVC fittings for a project at home. One of those mundane errands that change everything. I was loading my truck when I saw her. Carmen, dressed nice, hair done up, in that way she only bothered with for special occasions. But she wasn't alone. A man walked beside her. Tall, decent build, wearing khakis and a polo shirt like some country club type. They weren't holding hands, weren't wrapped up in each other, but something about the way they moved together made my stomach tighten. Then he did it, just for a second, casual as anything. He opened her car door, then ran his fingers through her hair before she got in. That gesture, that tiny, intimate touch that said everything. My hands stopped moving. The PVC pipe I was holding clattered onto the truck bed. I watched them drive away in his silver BMW, and something cold settled in my chest. Not anger yet, just a hollow recognition that my world had just shifted off its axis. I didn't go home that Tuesday night. Instead, I drove to Rosita's, a bar where some of the guys from the plant went after work. Found my buddy Eduardo Morales nursing a Tecate and watching the Diamondbacks game. Eduardo's been my welding partner for 8 years, knows me better than most. "You look like hell, hermano," he said when I sat down. "What's eating you?" I told him. "Not everything, just enough." He listened without interrupting, then gave a low whistle when I finished. "You sure about what you saw?" "I'm sure." Eduardo nodded slowly. "So, what are you going to do?" "I don't know yet, but I need to find out how deep this goes." That's when Eduardo mentioned his cousin, Fernando Castillo, private investigator, specialized in domestic cases. Eduardo pulled up his number, made the call right there at the bar. Fernando agreed to meet us the next morning. Fernando Castillo looked exactly like what you'd expect from a guy who made his living digging up other people's secrets. Mid-40s, graying mustache, eyes, that missed nothing. We met at a diner on the east side of Mesa, away from anywhere Carmen might show up. Tell me what you need, Fernando said, pulling out a notebook. I laid it out for him. The parking lot, the hair touch, the BMW. Fernando took notes, asked questions about Carmen's schedule, her workplace, her habits. Professional, thorough, no judgment. I can have preliminary information in a week, he said. Full picture in 2 weeks. It's going to cost you. He quoted a number that made me wince, but I didn't argue. Information like this was worth every penny. Do it. Whatever you find, I need to know. Fernando worked fast and thorough. By the end of the first week, he had enough evidence to bury Carmen and her boyfriend in court. We met at the same diner, and he slid a manila folder across the table like we were exchanging state secrets. You're not going to like this, he said. I opened the folder. Inside were photographs, dozens of them. Carmen and a man I now knew was Shane Powell walking into hotels together, sitting close at restaurants, his hand on hers across candlelit tables. One picture showed them kissing in broad daylight outside her office building, not even trying to hide it. But that wasn't the worst part. Check the financial records, Fernando said quietly. I flipped through until I found them. Credit card statements, bank records, a paper trail of betrayal, jewelry purchases I'd never seen, expensive dinners at places we'd never been together. Even a weekend trip to Sedona that Carmen had told me was a mandatory work conference. Thousands of dollars, money that should have been going into Lucia's college fund. She's been taking cash advances too, Fernando added. Small amounts, nothing that would trigger alerts, but it adds up. I'm estimating she's spent close to $5,200 over the last 4 months. $5,200. Money I'd earned in 100-degree heat, welding pipes that would outlast us both. Money meant for our daughter's future, blown on some car salesman with smooth hands and smoother words. There's more, Fernando said, pulling out another set of documents. I did some background on Shane Powell. This isn't his first rodeo. He's been divorced twice already, both times because of affairs. Your wife knew what she was getting into. I closed the folder, pushed it away. That's enough. You want me to keep digging? No, this is plenty. I looked at Fernando. Thanks, man. I owe you one. Just take care of yourself, Cesar, and get yourself a good lawyer. That afternoon, I went to see Miguel Santos, a divorce attorney with a reputation for playing hardball. He looked through Fernando's folder, made some notes, and leaned back in his chair. This is solid evidence, he said. With this, we can push for a favorable settlement. She won't have much ground to stand on. I want the house protected, I told him. And my tools, my equipment, that's my livelihood. We'll make sure everything stays yours. What about your kids? They're almost adults, so custody isn't really an issue, but they should know what's happening. That was the part I'd been dreading. Telling Orlando and Lucia that their mother had destroyed our family. But they deserved the truth. Spring break arrived, and with it came the conversation I'd been putting off. Orlando was home from ASU, and Lucia was between semesters. I took them to Los Dos Molinos, neutral territory, where we could talk without Carmen overhearing. They sat across from me in the booth, both looking confused and worried. Orlando folded his hands on the table. Lucia fidgeted with her napkin. Dad, what's going on? Orlando asked. Mom's been acting weird, but she won't say why. I took a breath. No easy way to do this. Your mother and I are getting divorced. She's been having an affair with a man from her work for the past 4 months. Lucia's. Hand went to her mouth. Orlando's jaw tightened. I found out 2 weeks ago, I continued. I've hired a lawyer, gathered evidence, and filed for divorce. The paperwork's already been served. Oh my God, Lucia whispered. Dad, I'm so sorry. Who is he? Orlando's voice was ice. His name's Shane Powell, car salesman. But that doesn't matter. What matters is that I'm handling it. And I need you both to know that this isn't your fault. None of this is your fault. Orlando shook his head slowly. I can't believe she'd do this to you, to us. She made her choice, I said. Now I'm making mine. I'm leaving kids, not just the house. I'm leaving Arizona. They both stared at me. What do you mean? Lucia asked. I've got a contact in Montana. Guy named Lance Murphy runs a welding operation out there. Been asking me to come work with him for years. I'm taking him up on it. I can't stay here, not with all these reminders. When? Orlando asked. 2 weeks. I'm tying up loose ends with work, selling some equipment. Lance is setting me up with a partnership deal. Lucia started crying. But we won't see you. You'll see me plenty. You can visit during breaks, summers, and I'll come back for important things. Graduations, weddings, all that. But I need distance from this, from her. We talked for another hour. By the end, they understood. They didn't like it, but they understood. Orlando even offered to help me pack. The next 2 weeks were a blur of preparation and cold efficiency. I sold my welding rig to a contractor I knew, kept only the tools I'd need for the move, closed out bank accounts, transferred assets, made sure everything was documented and legal, packed what I wanted to keep, and donated the rest. Carmen tried to stop me, showed up at Phoenix Steel one afternoon, begging me to reconsider. Caesar, please, we can fix this. I'll end it with Shane. I'll do whatever it takes. I didn't even look up. From the pipe joint I was welding. Too late for that. Our kids need you here. Our kids are adults. They'll be fine. I need you here, she said, her voice breaking. That made me stop. I shut off the torch, lifted my helmet, and looked at her. You needed Shane Powell. You got him. Now live with that choice. She left in tears. I went back to work. On my last day in Arizona, I loaded everything into my truck, hugged my kids goodbye, and hit the road before dawn. Didn't leave a note for Carmen. Didn't say goodbye. Just disappeared like I'd never been there at all. Montana was nothing like Arizona. Instead of endless desert and crushing heat, I found rolling hills, snow-capped mountains, an air so clean it almost hurt to breathe. Lance Murphy ran his operation outside Bozeman, specializing in custom metalwork and industrial repair. The work was good, honest, and kept my hands busy enough that I didn't have time to think about what I'd left behind. I rented a cabin about 15 miles from town, 2 bedrooms, wood-burning stove, and a porch that looked out over valleys that stretched to the horizon. It was quiet, peaceful, everything my old life wasn't. Lance didn't ask too many questions, just put me to work and paid me fair. The crew was small, 4 guys including me, and they respected a man's privacy. We'd work from sunrise until sunset, then head to the Copper Mountain Brewery for a beer and some pool. Simple routine, no complications. About a month after I arrived, I met Autumn Walsh. She worked behind the bar at Copper Mountain, always had a smile ready and could pour a perfect pint every time. Auburn hair, green eyes, laugh lines that spoke of someone who'd learned to find joy despite whatever storms she'd weathered. "You're the new guy from Lance's place?" she said one evening, setting down my beer without being asked. "Word travels fast around here," I replied. "Small town. Everyone knows everyone's business." She leaned against the bar. "I'm Autumn, by the way. Caesar." She didn't pry, didn't ask where I was from or why I'd come. Just brought my beer, made easy conversation about the weather and the Broncos' chances this season. It was comfortable, natural, the kind of interaction that doesn't require you to be anyone but yourself. I started coming in more often, sometimes after work, sometimes on weekends. We'd talk about nothing important, music, movies, the best fishing spots in the area. She told me she'd moved to Montana 5 years ago from California, wanted a fresh start after a bad relationship. I told her I was doing the same thing, leaving out the details about Carmen and the affair. One evening, I stayed late at the shop, finishing up a custom railing job. When I finally headed to Copper Mountain, it was past closing time, but Autumn was still there, wiping down tables. I knocked on the glass door. She looked up, smiled, and let me in. "Kitchen's closed," she said. "But I can make you a sandwich if you're hungry." "Just wanted to say hi," I admitted. "Maybe see if you'd want to grab dinner sometime, somewhere that's not here." She studied me for a moment, then nodded. "I'd like that." We went out that Saturday. Nothing fancy, just a steakhouse outside town, couple of beers, good conversation. She told me about her family back in California, her dream of maybe opening her own place someday. I told her about Orlando and Lucia, about the work I'd built and left behind, about starting over. "You seem like a man who's running from something," she said, not unkindly. "Maybe, or running towards something better." She smiled at that. I liked that answer. By summer, Autumn and I were spending most of our free time together. Nothing rushed, nothing forced, just 2 people who'd been through hell finding comfort in each other's company. For the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe again. The work at Lance's shop was steady, satisfying in a way the pipeline welding never was. Instead of massive industrial projects, we built custom gates for ranches, artistic railings for mountain homes, restored vintage farm equipment. There was creativity in it. Problem solving that went beyond just making strong joints. Lance started talking about making me a full partner by the end of the year. The numbers made sense, and I had enough saved from the sale of my Arizona equipment to make it work. A chance to build something again, but this time somewhere clean, somewhere honest. Orlando called every couple weeks, updating me on school, asking about Montana, making sure I was okay. Lucia wrote letters, actual handwritten letters, telling me about her classes, her friends, her plans for veterinary school. They were good kids, solid kids, and they understood why I'd had to leave. Mom asks about you sometimes, Orlando mentioned during one call. Wants to know if you're happy. What do you tell her? I tell her you moved on, that you have a good life now with someone who treats you right. Good answer, son. The seasons changed in Montana in a way they never did in Arizona. Fall brought colors I'd forgotten existed. Winter brought snow that actually stayed on the ground. And spring brought a sense of renewal that felt real, not just calendar-driven. I bought a truck, not new, but newer than what I'd driven in Arizona. Extended cab, four-wheel drive, the kind of vehicle that belonged in this landscape. Autumn and I started taking weekend trips, exploring ghost towns and hot springs, fishing in streams that ran clear enough to see the bottom. It was during one of these trips, camping beside a lake whose name I couldn't pronounce, that I realized something had shifted. I wasn't running anymore. I wasn't waiting for the other shoe to drop. Wasn't looking over my shoulder for reminders of what I'd lost. I was building again, choosing again, living again. You're different, Autumn said one evening, as we watched the sunset paint the mountains purple. How so? Lighter, like you finally set down something heavy you've been carrying. She was right. The anger was gone, burned away by clean mountain air and honest work, and the simple pleasure of being with someone who chose to be there every day. 7 months after I left Arizona, my phone rang. Unknown number with a 602 area code. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Caesar? The voice was familiar, but not one I wanted to hear. Orlando, what's wrong? My son sounded tired. Dad, Mom's been looking for you. She hired someone to track you down. I think she found out where you are. My stomach dropped. How did she? She called Lucia crying, saying she needed to talk to you. Lucia didn't tell her anything, but Mom's been making calls, checking with your old contacts. It's only a matter of time. I sat down on my porch steps, ran a hand through my hair. All right, thanks for the heads up, son. Dad, she's desperate. I don't know what she wants, but be careful. We hung up. I sat there for a long time, watching the sun set over the Gallatin Range, feeling that old familiar knot return to my gut. I'd known this day would come eventually. You can't just disappear and expect the past to stay buried forever. 3 days later, she showed up. I was working on a custom gate for a ranch outside town when Lance called out, "Caesar, you got a visitor." I looked up, and there she was. Carmen, standing in the doorway of the shop, looking thinner than I remembered, older, worn down by whatever storm she'd weathered since I left. But that wasn't what stopped my heart. She was holding something wrapped in a pale blue blanket. When I got closer, I realized what it was. A baby. My hands stopped moving. My brain stopped working. I just stood there staring at her and that infant in her arms, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. "Hello, Caesar," Carmen said quietly. Her voice shook like autumn leaves. "We need to talk." I set down my welding torch, pulled off my gloves. "Lance, I'm taking a break." We walked outside, away from the shop, toward my truck. The baby was sleeping, tiny face peaceful and unaware of the storm about to break. I didn't want to ask, but I had to know. "Whose is it?" Carmen's eyes filled with tears. "Yours. His name is Matthew. He's 3 months old." I shook my head slowly. "No, that's not possible. We haven't been together in over a year." "I was pregnant when you left," she insisted. "I didn't know until after you were gone. Caesar, please. He's your son." I looked at her, really looked at her, and saw something in her eyes I'd seen before. Desperation. The same look she'd had the night I caught her deleting text messages. "You're lying," I said flatly. I'm not. I have the birth certificate. Your name is on it. Then you forged it. I took a step back. That baby isn't mine, Carmen. The timeline doesn't work. Please, she whispered. Please, Caesar. Shane left me when he found out I was pregnant. I have no money, nowhere to go. I need help. And there it was. The truth laid bare. She wasn't here because she loved me or because that baby was mine. She was here because she'd burned every other bridge and I was her last option. Get a paternity test, I said coldly. Bring me proof and then we'll talk. I can't afford. Not my problem. I turned and walked back toward the shop. Go home, Carmen. Carmen didn't leave Montana right away. She checked into the Pine Lodge Motel in town, kept calling me, leaving voicemails begging me to reconsider. I didn't answer. Instead, I contacted Miguel Santos back in Arizona, explained the situation, and had him file for a court-ordered paternity test. 4 days later, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. When I answered, a woman's voice came through, hesitant and apologetic. Mr. Ramirez, my name is Rosa Martinez. I'm a nurse at St. Joseph's Hospital in Phoenix. I need to talk to you about something important. My grip tightened on the phone. I'm listening. Your ex-wife, Carmen Ramirez, gave birth at our hospital 3 months ago. She listed you as the father on the birth certificate. But, sir, I was there during her prenatal visits. I overheard conversations she had with a man named Shane Powell. He was with her at several appointments, and I heard them discussing the pregnancy. The dates she's giving you don't match what's in our records. My heart pounded. What are you telling me? I'm telling you that baby isn't yours, Rosa said quietly. She was already 4 months pregnant when you left Arizona. According to her medical records, she knew the whole time. I shouldn't be calling you, but I have a brother who went through something similar. I couldn't let her do this to you. I sat down hard on my porch steps. Do you have proof? I can't send you medical records. That's illegal. But when the paternity test gets ordered, the truth will come out. I just wanted you to know beforehand so you weren't blindsided. After we hung up, I sat there for a long time, staring at the mountains. Carmen had come all this way, baby in hand, spinning lies to manipulate me into taking care of another man's child, the same man she'd destroyed our marriage for. The paternity test results came back exactly as Rosa had predicted. I wasn't the father. The baby was Shane Powell's, conceived during their affair while she was still married to me, still sharing my bed, still looking me in the eye every morning and lying. I had Miguel send the results to Carmen with a cease and desist order. If she contacted me again, I'd file harassment charges. She left Montana the next day without a word. Autumn found me that evening on the porch, staring at nothing. She sat down beside me, didn't say anything at first, just let me process. It's over, I finally said. The test proved what I already knew. That baby's not mine. I'm sorry you had to go through that, Autumn said softly. I'm not, I replied, and I meant it. She showed me exactly who she is again, and this time I didn't fall for it. I looked at Autumn, this woman who'd been patient with me, who'd never asked for more than I could give, who'd never lied about where she'd been or who she'd been with. I'm done looking back, I said. I'm ready to move forward. She smiled, squeezed my hand. Good, because I'm not going anywhere. Orlando called that night. He'd heard about Carmen's scheme through the family grapevine. Dad, I'm sorry, Orlando said. I can't believe she tried to pull that on you. It's not your fault, son. Your mother made her choices. Now she's living with them. Lucia wants to come visit for Christmas. We both do, if that's okay. I felt something tighten my chest loosen. I'd like that a lot. And Dad, I'm proud of you, for walking away, for standing your ground. You taught us what a man's supposed to do when the world tries to break him. After we hung up, I sat on that porch with Autumn beside me and felt something I hadn't felt in over a year. Peace. Real, honest peace. The kind that comes from knowing you did right by yourself, even when it was hard. Christmas came, and with it came my kids. Orlando drove up from ASU, and Lucia flew in from Arizona. They stayed for a week, and I watched them fall in love with Montana the way I had. They helped Autumn cook Christmas dinner, went snowshoeing with me in the mountains, and talked about maybe doing summer internships in Bozeman. It's beautiful here, Dad, Lucia said on their last night, standing on the porch looking out at the snow-covered peaks. And you seem happy. I am happy, mija. Good. You deserve that. 6 months. Later, Autumn and I got married. Nothing fancy, just a simple ceremony at the courthouse in Bozeman, with Lance as my witness and Autumn's sister flying in from California. Orlando and Lucia came back for the weekend, both of them genuinely happy to see me moving forward. She's good for you, Dad, Orlando said, hugging Autumn after the ceremony. Really good. We bought a house that summer, modest place on 5 acres with a barn I converted into my own shop. Lance and I had become full partners by then, and the business was growing. Custom metalwork for vacation homes, restoration projects for collectors, steady work that paid well, and let me use my hands to create instead of just maintain. I was making decent money, enough to help the kids with their loans and still have something left over. Orlando graduated from ASU that December with his engineering degree. I drove back to Arizona for the ceremony, first time I'd set foot in that state since I left. It felt strange. Being back, like visiting a place you used to know but don't quite recognize anymore. Carmen wasn't at the graduation. Orlando had told her not to come. Apparently, after Shane found out the baby was his, he'd panicked and cut off all contact. She'd moved in with her sister in Tucson, was working retail, and struggling to make ends meet. I didn't ask for details, didn't want to know. That chapter of my life was closed. Lucia graduated from high school the following spring with honors, already accepted to veterinary school at Colorado State. She came to visit us in Montana that summer, spent 2 months helping Autumn manage the brewery and learning to fish from our neighbor. She seemed lighter, happier, like she'd finally made peace with what happened. Mom called me last week, Lucia mentioned one evening while we were sitting by the fire pit. Asked if I'd seen you, if you were happy. What did you tell her? I told her you moved on, that you have a good life now with someone who treats you right. She looked at me. She cried, said she made the biggest mistake of her life, letting you go. I nodded slowly. She didn't let me go. I left. There's a difference. I know, and for what it's worth, I'm glad you did. You deserve better than what she gave you. Today I wake up next to a woman who chose me not out of desperation or manipulation, but because she genuinely wants to be here. I work with my hands doing something I love, in a place where the air is clean and the mountains remind you every morning that there's something bigger than your problems. My kids are thriving, building their own lives with the values I tried to teach them. I've got good friends, a solid roof over my head, and peace of mind. That's more than enough. That's everything. As for Carmen, I heard through Orlando that Shane Powell abandoned her the moment he found out the baby was his. She's living with her sister in Tucson now, working retail and struggling to make ends meet. I wish her no ill will, but I don't think about her much anymore. She's a chapter that's closed, a lesson that's learned, a storm that's passed. Sometimes the best revenge is simply living well. And I'm living very well indeed. The truth is, betrayal doesn't have to define you. It can refine you. When someone shows you who they really are, believe them the first time, then choose yourself. Because at the end of the day, the person who walks away with their dignity intact is the one who truly wins.